Hey YouTube, this is EvanMagician34, and I've got something for you for the new format now that it's guaranteed. It's a little different from the first list that they leaked, but still. It's a pretty fun deck, and it also plays pretty well. This is something to open up your locals with or whatever. 3 copies of Flamvell Firedog. Basically, I like running Flamvells because they're solid, they got a lot of reanimation, the list liked them, they get to take advantage of a lot of the new changes. So 3 Firedogs, of course. 2 Magicians. Excellent tuner, searchable with Firedog and Summoner Monk, of course. 1 copy of Flamvell Archer. I've decided to go with him over the Hedgehog, basically just because he can give the pump occasionally by sacrificing himself to help the Firedog, but it's kind of a thin difference. Also running 1 copy of the Baby. I just like him because he's the 1-star tuner. Makes him pretty useful. We're also running 3 copies of another card that didn't get touched by the list, but probably should have. 3 copies of Reborn Tengu, just because he's amazing for any deck that likes to run tuners. Doesn't get much more simple than that. We're also running 2 copies of Summoner Monk, taking advantage of that change on the list too. There are plenty of 4-star monsters you want to grab out of this deck, including the next one on the list, which is 3 copies of Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress. And you can even Ixies now with the Monk so that it's not a waste if you have to pop something with her effect or something like that. But basically she's here just to stock your grave, of course, and to enable Charge of the Light Brigade. You're running 1 Glow-Up Bulb. It's good to summon out of your hand, sync with, say, Tengu, make Librarian, and then you can bring this back and sync it with the next Tengu to make a Catastor and then draw a card, plays like that. And also, even if you mill him, you can still bring him back like that. Plenty of ways to take advantage of him. He's just a really good card for any deck that likes to mill. 1 copy of Sangan, of course. He searches lots of good stuff. And one of the good things he likes to search is Effect Veiler. We're just running 1. We don't want to overdo it. This is one of those monster cards that's really a spell card in disguise. But I mean, yeah, you could summon him to sync with him or something like that, or whatever the case may be. But more often than not, it just sits in your hand, and it's a very, very fast spell card that you never have to set, but you still get to play it during your opponent's turn. So think of it as a spell card. Unless, of course, you'd like to remove it from play for Blacklist or Soldier Envoy at the beginning. This thing coming back pretty much guarantee that they're going to unite the U.S. with Japan like they always do, and change our priority ruling. But that's cool. Even if they don't, it hasn't proved to be too broken in playtesting yet, but until they change that ruling, hey, I mean, you can play this guy with priority ruling. It doesn't offend me too much. So anyway, 1 BLS, obviously. We're running 1 copy of Marshmallow. It's a good set in case you don't get a good hand, and you can mill it, and when it dies on the field, of course, it's another light monster is basically why it's in here, and the damage doesn't hurt. Just slightly edged out Spirit Reaper, basically. And we're also running 1 copy of Gores, because we're not likely to have a lot of set cards on the field. He's a good dark monster, and he just protects you. I mean, he's really quite a good inclusion in many decks. First of our spells is Heavy Storm. It's not quite as good as Trunade in a lot of respects, just because it can be stopped by more things. It's more easy to negate. It can be stopped by Magatama or Starlight Road, or any one of a number of things, like, say, Stardust Dragon. But still, it's good to have it back. It's a nice, solid card, and if it does go through, destroying the cards is a little bit better than sending them back to the hand, obviously. We're running 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. Yes, I know this thing went to 3, but I'd advise you just to run 2, unless you really, really need that 3rd for some reason. Because a smart player is going to set 3, maybe 4 back rows still, as long as they have some way to protect against Storm. In which case, MST is not going to look too good. What are you going to do? Randomly pop 1 of 3 or 4 cards? You're almost surely not going to hit the one you really need to hit. And even if you do, out of that many back rows, there's going to be something else important that's probably still going to hit you. So drawing too many of these in a hand can basically get you killed early in the game. You don't want to see 2 of these in your opener most of the time. So you don't want them to stack up on you. And so in a deck like this, you probably only want to run 2. Next up is Charge of the Light Brigade. It just mills 3 and gets you a Lila, so it thins your deck out considerably. Always a good choice. Doesn't really need to be explained that much. 1 Pot of Avarice, and the reason we're running Pot of Avarice times 1 is because we can no longer run 2. Monster Reborn. Don't think that one even needs an explanation. We're also running 3 copies of Rekindling. This is how you spam out a bunch of synchros. In an ideal world, you're going to, say, summon a Flamvell or something like that, or a Monk. Your opponent's going to burn their warning on it, and then you get to rekindle afterward and go ahead and do whatever you were going to do anyway. So don't be afraid to send those Flamvells to your grave. because obviously you just want to bring him back. And because you're running quite a few tuners, mind control is definitely good, and we also have an Xyz monster, so good way to steal and get rid of your opponent's stuff. We're also running Dark Hole, pretty obvious there, good field control. 1 copy of Book of Moon, it shuts down your opponent's attempts at sinking and stuff like that, and it can also shut down Xyzing, but generally speaking, it's sinking you want to control, obviously. It has lots of other uses too, but that's the primary one these days. We're also running 1 copy of Creature Swap Tech, basically because we have plenty of things that we wouldn't mind donating to our opponent by force, and a lot of times there's lots of good stuff to steal, like they'll leave 1 good monster on the field, for example. So, good there. Solemn Judgment. Basically, it's the guarantee that whatever you're trying to do goes through. Exceptionally good card. We're running 2 copies of Horn of the Phantom Beast because we have Tengu and we have Flamvell Firedog, both of whom really like this card quite a bit, and drawing the card is also quite good. You can also flip it during the damage step, so all around very good card. I think most people already know that by now. We're also running 3 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. Yes, that's right, 3 copies. Virtually every deck's hurt by it. It gets things out of the way if you want to kill somebody, sure, but the main thing is it kills virtually every Synchro and Xyz monster there is, with the only notable exception being Thought Ruler Archfiend. So basically with that exception, at least in the practical world of Synchros, it's the only practical one you can't kill. It's an amazingly powerful card, and it can prevent them from sinking for something if you don't like what it's about to turn into, like they're about to Black Rose you. You can bounce half of the thing before they sink. Just an incredibly powerful and very overlooked card, but especially if the priority ruling, I should say when really, when that takes effect, this card's going to skyrocket. Just because it's going to be that much more powerful, because then it can be flipped to shut off effects that people would otherwise get on priority. So definitely worth inclusion, and at 3. You'd be surprised how powerful it is. You should give it a try if you haven't already. The extra deck, we're running 1 copy of Red Nova Dragon. He's just a great rekindle target, basically. It's just 1 Fire Dog, 1 Magician, 1 Archer, and then the baby. Bring all those back and instantly make this guy. He's huge. He kills anything, and he's hard to kill because he can't be destroyed. Just a fun inclusion, too. 1 copy of Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Pretty easy to make in this deck. We're running 2 copies of Stardust Dragon, so that, I mean, obviously he's a good 8-star target when you don't know what else to get. 1 copy of Red Dragon Archfiend, pretty much have to have that. Scrap Dragon. Colossal Fighter. Plenty of 8-star targets, that's kind of what we're going for most of the time. Thought Ruler Archfiend. He's going to be pretty good in the new format, too. Black Rose Dragon. 1 copy of Arcanite Magician, because Summoner Monk plus the Archer makes this guy. 1 copy of Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. 1 copy of Gaia Knight, the Force of Earth. I'm using the beat stick here, but you can definitely go with Orient Dragon as your other 6-star. Nothing wrong with that. 1 copy of TG Hyper Librarian. You can definitely take advantage of it in this deck. 1 copy of Ally of Justice Cataster. And finally 1 copy of number 39 Utopia, just a good 4-star target. And you can feel free to go for a different 4-star target, but I really like Zenmeister, I guess. But there's really no reason to run it over Utopia. Utopia just makes more sense. His defensive power is kind of more attractive. So, anyway, that's the deck. That's Flamvells in the new format. And until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.